project, one imaginary, a game company from Italy who's been making the games on our design, and Registered Nursing Home Association, which is a UK union of care homes, and that's where our users come from, because we like to go in the wild and try stuff as soon as possible. So our session today, Brainstorming and Other Crimes, a detective game to support creativity in dementia care. So what are we going to talk about today? I'm going to first tell you a bit about the motivation behind this project, so why we set off on this journey. I'm interested in the relationship between providing explicit creativity support in games, so this relationship with the game mechanics. And I'm describing and exploring this relationship by constructing a model, which we call creative game-based learning model, to see how this process could be led. And not to leave it all at theory, we'd like to try things in practice. So we instantiated this model with the game for the beginning called Hazel Court, which is in the application domain of dementia care. So from the domain independent model, we went to something more in particular. So we're going to hear a bit about the story of Hazel Court, of its conception, from the concept study to the first digitally supported prototype. And in the end, I would like really to hear what do you think, so we can discuss together the implications of merging creativity and games. So what can we do together to lead this approach forward? So as I said, I really believe in the emerging opportunities of relating creative problem-solving networks, so creativity which is led particularly, and games. So to explore this relationship, we wanted to expect the two ways of implication. So how can we play more creatively, and how we can create more playfully, right? Maybe I said this twice now. I don't know. Never mind. We're looking at the specific type of games, which are here called serious games. I know that this term can be confusing a bit, like if it's a game, how it's doing something serious, or if it's something serious, how we do it through a game. Well, basically, this is something which Eamon said in the previous session, if you were here. So these are basically games with purpose. So we make games which are either for learning or social change or so on. So there is already some signs that we are playing these sorts of games creatively, because in these games you have to often make choices, you have to do different sorts of prioritization, and to do such tasks, you have to have some creative skills, which could be more explicitly guided. And already in the games, we are creating new artifacts. People are more often than not now coming up with hacks to do something in a game which designers didn't think of. And many of the games now already have this implicit creativity support where you make things inside them. But how can we make this be more led? Through the techniques which are already established in the creative problem-solving framework. And then you can look at the other side. You can look at the creativity techniques, and you can say, well, we've been playing here basically already, like we don't need any special games feature, but actually game mechanics could provide new insight in terms of innovation, flow, fun, and self-organization in these techniques. So game mechanics, which have been established in this field, have opportunity to really change how we practice our creativity techniques. So it's not magic, it's all very methodological, so to speak, where that's our point of view. So what I did firstly was to look at these relationships. I tried to make a mapping between what we already know about creative climates in organizations and what does the literature says about games. So we identified the mapping between these factors that say, okay, the organization is working creatively if these factors are present. And then we found the mapping mentioning these same aspects as well in good game design principles. So, okay, challenge is obvious one, okay, but there's some more interesting one, like idea support. So it should we should be able to make a game which minimizes the possibility of damage of one's self-esteem. And there is persistence, for example, so this shouldn't be taken wrongly. If we're more persistent, we will come to a creative idea in the end. It's not about just being stubborn. It's more about having an environment which is safe, to which you can come back to and proceed with what you've been doing. So we're trying to incorporate these 6 factors into the process. So creative game-based learning is about a model, about a process, and we're trying to see how can we make experiences which will have creative outcomes and support these factors, because they reflect both good sides of games, good game design, and constructive creative climate. So yes, the question that we posed to ourselves as a main research driver in the beginning was, how could variations of creativity support and game design influence creative and learning outcomes in the games that we make, domain independently again? So we went, something happened here with the, could I have a bit of assistance here? I don't know what happened. Did I touch something? Anyhow, what we did in the first round was to try to go with dementia care as our application domain, because we had the Mirror project. We're all working together here in the city. And, okay.
Can you click on the process? Can you see that?
So I might do it here. But it's not actually, the mouse is not working here.
Yeah.
I apologize for this slight interruption. I hope we'll manage to resolve this soon, because you can't read a thing. So try here. Okay, you can check your email and Facebook now. So sorry.
Yes.
Yay! Okay. So my second supervisor is also from health domain. I have no background in health whatsoever, so I came here as a computer scientist. But I learned a lot, and when I came to this world, I actually understood that we can make a difference in this field. And we're really believing in making customized creative solutions. So we're not selling creative solutions in general. We really believe in listening to our users and customizing techniques based on what we see in the domain. And these are some things which we want to target through a game that we're making. So we want to employ these creativity techniques to open up space for reflective learning, as that's one of the topics of the Mirror project. We want this to be a new training tool to make people in this domain be more flexible. Because what you have in dementia care, there are people who are often very task-oriented. They work on tight schedules. They're sometimes poorly paid. And they would really need some support to move from this task-oriented sort of operating to a more person-centered care approach. Because dementia, I don't know if everyone here knows what dementia is. It's a state of impaired memory due to various physiological conditions. Well, these people all of them are unique. You can't treat every dementia patient the same. You have to really customize your approach. And that's why we're trying to make the care staff look into their daily tasks in a more creative way. They have to be ready for these dynamic, unpredictable situations. And hello. So we're trying to help them maintain identity of the person they're caring from. So personalization. We're trying to get them have a more community sense of sharing decision making. So that's what we set off to do. And as I mentioned, I didn't know anything about dementia, so I went to the induction for carers. I went to learn how to be a carer to see what kind of game they would need. So on this session that we went to in February 2012, when I was working with them on changing catheters and adult diapers and things like that, in between these steps, I realized that these people actually had to think like detectives most of the time. They have to cross-reference these very different information. They have to be like Sherlock Holmes. They have to see things and identify accurate, relevant, timely, complete information. So this is, as I said, very fast-paced, very complex domain. And we asked ourselves the question how we could incorporate creativity in these games experience to help them train in such a thing. So our game should be a detective game, we said. So not to rush into stuff, we decided to do a concept study. So I took a game called Baker Street 213. It's a board game where you have to solve crimes, right? And I took it to them. We played that game first, and based on how they handled the murder cases in this Victorian England setting, we after that gave them to solve a problem from their real world. So they had to imagine a situation where there was a complaint by some resident, and they should investigate what happened. Was it accurate or not? And what we saw is that they recognized that they have to be detectives. They applied some of the things that they've felt when they went to be Sherlock Holmeses in the previous exercise. But still, this level of analogy should be a bit lighter, semantically closer to their domain, because the transfer didn't work so precisely as we hoped. So it's all about testing, going in the wild and just adjusting the game to what you see that users like. And since we do it from the very early days, we can afford to actually have it in many iterations. So they would really like to see something like fancy devices with which they can play with. But then in the end of the day, they also really like to sit together and look at each other's faces. So the environment of a board game is still sort of connecting. It's about the creating community part, which we talked about before. So yeah, we are working down on different combinations to create a pervasive environment, basically. So what do you do in Hazel Court? First you go, so it's a Cluedo mashup, I forgot to say that. Did you play Cluedo? Is there anyone here who didn't play Cluedo? I don't know, showing? No, okay. Well, if you know about that, it's also about solving stuff. But this is Cluedo for carers, basically. You go about, you collect some clues, you explore the rooms of Cluedo, like you go into hall, you go into the ballroom and things like that. And you meet different characters. We map the characters. So Mrs. White is, for example, a senior carer. Colonel Mustard is a son of Mr. and Mrs. Black. And the mystery that you have to solve is that you notice that Mr. and Mrs. Black, the residents, have been acting unusually. So you go about, collect the clues, speak with different people that you meet, and try to figure out why they've been strange lately. And when they go and collect the clues, they come back, and we're trying to guide a classic creative problem-solving approach, so to guide them towards idea generation about how to improve the care of Mr. and Mrs. Black. So this is that analogy domain. We're taking them to another world to solve a problem from real world and then come back. I hope this was clear enough. Anyhow, so we're using 3 particular techniques here. So we use the classic brainstorming first to open up for exploratory creativity. Then we use the random combinations, so the various pieces of clues, they use them to make smaller groups of ideas, and then they develop one idea from this part. And then, as an excursion, they try to transform that knowledge of reflective learning. So people sit together in a room, and after playing this game, they had fun. They're already relaxed and everything. They basically share the stories which really disturb them in their daily work. And I saw how people can learn from each other's experiences. For example, some of the older carers were really taking care of the less experienced ones. That was actually the best part in the end of the game, when they debriefed together. And what we do here is not make them solve the same crime over and over again, because that would be very boring. But basically, we shuffle this clue collection base. And we're trying to make these clues more abstract, because we don't want to guide them anywhere very specifically. So what we did first is paper-based prototyping. So yes, you see an iPad there, but it's not doing anything except from recording. It's all on the papers and the board and everything. So we did first some usability testing. So the player experience, we tested the contents of how appropriate it was and how appropriate these 3 techniques were. So we recorded observations, and then we put on the action. So that's the whole cycle of how we make things here. We try out things, we correct them, then we go about again. So these are some of the conclusions that we have made. And so we realized, for example, that they really like talking to each other. They really like playing as a team. So what we want to give them in the next stage is pervasive board games. So maybe trying out things with the QR codes and things like that. So they can have devices to play with, but still to keep this horizontal moment. What we want to do, firstly, is to make a web app. And these are some screenshots from the web app that we use. So we use the web app in the first phase of the game, the clue collection and exploring of the rooms. And yeah, they're Mr. and Mrs. Black. They go about the rooms. It's like in those books, like where you flip the pages and you have a choice. If you want to do this, go to page 32. If you want to do that, go to page 15. So it basically was a principle like that. And these were the characters, and it leads you to this clue collection, which was happening very physically. So we had a bunch of toys, we had a bunch of Post-its. We tested it again with users. So yes, all these tests, I don't know if I mentioned, was done with actual carers. So we went with groups of care staff and played it with them. So we tried this with 5 groups of 4. The good part about Hazel Court is that it could be played by from 2 to 6, like Cluedo. So it's very scalable. Yes, I think it's that. So, and these are some lessons that we learned. So we define creativity as a process which brings us to ideas that are both novel and useful. What happened in this testing was that they came out with a bunch of ideas which were very useful, but nobody got surprised. We kind of failed on the novelty part. So what we have to do in the next phase is to target techniques which will bring us more novelty. Techniques such as negative brainstorming, where you say that you basically can't have good ideas, but just say, like, come up with a really, really bad idea. That would relax people. Or reverse assumptions. So if we assume that I don't know, if Mrs. Black has broken her hip, we assume that she can't move. But if you reverse assumption and say that she can move, what kind of ideas would you make then? It sort of relaxes them of the task-oriented moment that they have, because they're really, really tight. They sit there sometimes in the beginning really watching not to say something which could be understood wrongly, or they're very well trained, but we're trying to open them up from this. And we really are interested in deepening our knowledge about how to connect creative climate and game mechanics to reach more learning outcomes. We like this learning to be motivated, not something like a boring training that you have to do when you go into a profession, but we're trying to construct this as a whole experience, basically. And yes, we like this idea of pervasiveness. We want to try different stuff with technology, putting it in unusual places, and let them do something in real space. So we don't want people sitting in their own computers at home and clicking. I have nothing against that, just to be sure, but we want this to be a shared experience, to work as a team and reflect as a team. So what does future hold for us? That's something that I actually wanted to ask you, because these are some questions that we've been posing to ourselves, and I would be really happy if I hear some interesting answers from you today. So we came up with this approach of creative game-based learning, and we'd like to see if we could create new pervasive systems so technologically supported to have more motivated, creative and learning goals. So through this game, you're both learning creativity skills and generating ideas in your particular domain of interest. So how can we facilitate that in a better way? Are these actually a new genre of serious game, or is this something which already exists? Please tell me, because I didn't hear of it, but maybe it exists, I don't know. So far, I saw it very implicitly, but do we actually have such things, or we are making something nice and original here? So what are the new modes of technologically supported facilitation? So what we do here, one of the main things which creative game-based learning is about is this facilitation, like led creativity. So how we could use the best from the games world and the best we have in technology to provide such an experience. And yes, we just tried dementia care so far as an application domain, but I would be really happy to generalize my model and see if we can replicate this approach. Because yes, we like the customized, adjusted solution, but I would like to try and go somewhere else, learn some new domain. Right now we have an interest from an undergraduate student who wants to make a game in Story Nexus. It's a platform made by a company called Fail Better. So I said, okay, you can pick a domain that you like. I don't really mind. It's going to be your game, but let's try to see if this model helps you or not. So let's see what's going to happen. If anybody is interested in trying CGBL approach, please come see me. I'll be really happy to discuss the options. We're still in the phase of tweaking and quite flexible. So yes, thank you very much for your attention. And please shoot the questions. Thank you.